Bienvenue, welcome, bonjour, my friends. My name is Stuart. This is Reanimated, podcast about zombies and undead stuff. Joining me from the East Coast is H.A. Conrad. Good day.
Good day.
Good day. We were both remarking to each other before we recorded. We do our weather talk before we record now. That we're both having delightful, crisp fall days. So that was nice. I hope everybody out there is having a nice, crisp day, paired with pumpkin pie and other sort of harvest delights. The delights that we are going to indulge in this morning is another episode of Daryl Dixon and a little bit of zombie news. And so, without further ado, not adieu, which means goodbye. Do you know what arrivederci means? You've been to Italy.
Arrivederci, isn't that go with God?
Yeah, I think it's also goodbye. Interesting.
Well, that's also adieu, go with
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Adios, go with
Pe-
God.
Peace out.
All of it. All of it everybody's going with God. But it's good and fitting that we are recording on the Day of the Dead, or one of the days of the Deads. So
There's so many.
today,
There's so many days of the dead.
well, today is the day that honors people who died as adults. I think November 1st is children, and November 1st is also All Souls Day. So covering all the dead and all the souls. And we did talk about our weather, but I will say it is nice to have actual fall weather and fitting for November, unlike earlier this week, which felt like summer. So
Get that out
just
of here.
had the walk through the crispy leaves. It was great. It was awesome. But anyway, also in season, I guess, is, a musical I just saw, Swept Away, which is starring John Gallagher Jr., just showed up on Broadway, and the music was by the Avett Brothers. And this is not quite zombie news, though sort of, I guess, adjacent, maybe, or just sometimes the ideas of survival and the things that survival causes people to consider and ponder. I have to say, I really have to like wonder what the pitch for this was. It's based a little bit on a true story where these sailors got shipwrecked and basically cannibalism is involved because they had to survive, and that's a little bit of the theme of this. But I'm kind of like, do you like musicals and cannibalism? Well, then this show is for you. And I'll admit I did not know this premise before walking in, and it was very good and very well done. I don't know that I need to see it again. And spoiler alert, there wasn't any actual, show of cannibalism. They just talk about it vividly. But that's also kind of bad too. But in any case, I recommend it. The music was great. If you like the Avett Brothers, they were awesome.
What else?
Are you?
What other things have they done? I don't know who they are.
Oh, they're just. I mean, they're musicians, and so they. But their music is great, and so it's definitely like a mix of like bluegrass, rock, all that kind of thing. So it definitely fit in with this particular uh type of musical.
Cool.
And the staging was pretty cool. It's been making me ponder the like what would people actually do in this situation? And I guess we know, but this was just some ethical decisions and things like that that people have to make in dire straits.
Yeah. I have friends who spend a lot of time up at Donner Lake,
Ah,
around Tahoe. It's so weird that there are things that are still named after that, and all I can
right.
think of is cannibalism when I hear that. But it's like, no, this is where we go to have a vacation. I'm like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, right. Like,
that's
and
cool.
and again, it's sort of like the judgment, and all that would go along with that. And so I guess the story and trial that this was based upon, although they didn't, this is loosely based, like they made their own story out of it. But in this shipwreck, there were a few of the sailors got stuck on a boat and made a decision to, help somebody along in their death so that they could survive. And I believe it was a cabin boy. So, and they were tried for murder, but there was a lot of public sympathy just because of the incredibly difficult situation that they were in. And so they do talk a lot about that in this, and they did it very well. And it was a scaled down like staging of it. So in any case, putting that out there. And Donner Pass, yeah.
Anytime I drive to Tahoe or Truckee or somewhere around there, I end up going through Donner Pass. I drive past Donner Lake, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't be. I guess I probably because I didn't learn about those late locations until after I was aware of their association. So, but
Hmm.
for others, maybe it's just where they always went for. some good times to ice skate or whatever. Anyway, moving to something else exciting in addition to Swept Away, which we should all rush out and see,
Mm.
um, is a new Mike Flanagan associated project. He's the producer, not the director or writer, but a zombie action horror film called Epilogue, which is just kind of starting to go out and like look for money. It does have
Yeah.
some people associated with it who we know of, like David Desmalchian, who was in everything and seems to be a a really good choice for horror, and Kate Siegel. And it will also apparently have some other folks from the Mike Flanagan body of actors, and I don't quite know who else that would be. But it's going to be a zombie movie called Epilogue, and I'm excited.
Right. He's also adapting the Dark Tower series, from what I believe. So he's got a lot of projects going on. I'm excited for anything Mike Flanagan related. He also, I don't know if this is something, I did hear about this. I don't know what the progress on this. I think this is further in the future, but he's also been associated with a new Exorcist film, which we know from my own challenges. I don't know that I will ever be able to watch that should it ever come out, but
Mhm.
he's definitely to me one of the premier people in terms of um, imagining and getting these projects done in a way that are incredibly thoughtful, comprehensive, terrifying, all at the same time. So I'm on board with whatever he wants to do. So I'll take it all. I'll take it all.
Yeah.
Um, but, has he ever done a zombie related
Not
anything?
that I'm aware of, but honestly, he's done everything else in horror.
Right.
So
So it just feels like he
yeah,
needs to start, right?
by process of elimination. And again, he's not directing or didn't write it. He's just producing. But I don't know. So it's like hard to say how much his fingerprints will be on it. But I hope that they are. At some, maybe he can help guide the script. But I'm sure it's already done. Well, the question is now, will they get funding and will it come out anytime soon? And we'll just be keeping an
Right.
eye on it.
And I do love Kate Siegel. I think, obviously I thought she was excellent in Midnight Mass. And so the idea of her starring in this, which is kind of fun, would be pretty great. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, stay tuned. We'll keep tabs on this.
Another one to be looking out for. And then there was also an article from Collider, where they had an interview with Daisy Ridley, who is out there stumping for her movie Magpie,
Mhm.
while We Bury the Dead, her Australian zombie picture, has just premiered at the Adelaide Film Festival yesterday, November 1st. So still no word on when that's going to be making a move into wider circles, but there's this article on Collider if people want to read it. There's some impressions she has, some of her method of going into and playing the character of Ava, who has traveled to Tasmania to find her husband, and there's a lot of zombies and how she got into character. So I'm sure that this will be an exciting film. I want to see it. We've been reading about it for a year at least.
True. And
I'm just ready to see it. I'm ready for some of these projects like Generation Z and this to have US release dates, which
yeah, and
they don't.
I also think that this is one of those things where we've been getting sort of dribs and drabs of information, and it feels a little weird that there isn't more, so that worries me, but I definitely want to see this. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
So we hopefully we'll get to be able to see that soon. Um, but without further ado, haha, we are going to be chatting about the next episode in Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol, or as I fondly like to call it, Daryl and Carol. Um, and this episode is called Le Paradis pour toi, and this is the episode that kind of a lot of things come to a head, and we get the reunion we were wanting, and then one reunion that was to me very short-lived and sad. But let's get into it.
Oh,
Um, so I
yeah.
think we're starting out here with where we left off, which is Carol, having the realization that Janae is her idea of Carol getting her vengeance, which she's been like hinting at, is actually going to be shooting up a bunch of some volunteers, but some not volunteers,
I,
to basically be infected with her new wonderful viral strain.
yeah, I don't think any of these people are volunteered to get shot. I don't think that's what they thought they were volunteering for.
Do
Because
you
her,
think they were volunteering? Do you think that they thought that they were volunteering just to invade and they
yeah.
did not know that they were okay, fair. But it felt like there was a couple of acolytes in there that seemed on board and some definitely
And
not.
frankly, that's the only reason Carol's alive is because she stands behind the floor stew guy who
The floor
doesn't
stew
move.
guy, yeah,
He
he just
doesn't.
sits
He
there.
stands there and takes the bullets like a man, you could say.
Yep,
Um, and she hides behind him, and that's the only reason she's alive. That
I know.
and she gets shot with that dart in the right place where she could reach it to pull it out in time.
And also,
Because
I think she has some thick something on that I don't think it actually hit her because if it had, she'd be done.
well, yeah, I mean, maybe those little capsules take a minute to start draining. I don't know. It didn't. Yeah, it was in there for like 3 seconds,
I
but
think
she
it hit
didn't.
the little leather thing that's over her shoulder, so I don't think it actually hit her.
Okay.
So, Carol's tough. She's got skin like steel. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
but she's yeah,
This is certainly an episode which tries to play up how tough Carol is in these scenes inside Mont Saint-Michel, where she's fighting everybody. Um, she, there's one where she just kicks a guy and he's knocked out. And
yeah.
I'm like, this is not, I mean, we know that Carol's a badass, but that's not the kind of badass she is. I kind of wish that they had gone a different direction with that. Like she is the kind of badass who will shoot a propane tank and blow up a bunch of people, right? She's a
Yeah.
badass because she's merciless and cunning. She is not a kick a man in the head from an alleyway and he'll be
Well,
unconscious.
let's just say she is. But in this case, her cunning is just about hiding amongst the people that are now
In,
incapacitated,
in in this
shot. But
case, this is her, yeah. And then you know what? Honestly, she played. This is the only scenario in which she gets out of this alive. Is that she lies there just until the zombies start to wake up and notice her. And these zombies are great. They've introduced fast zombies into The Walking Dead. I mean, we knew that already, but this is great. I was here for this. This was pretty exciting. Yeah,
so the part here, and this is, I'm always kind of interested in how they play these things out. So she's playing possum long enough, like
yeah.
they must have different senses or whatever, because if she was just lying there totally dead, like, or pretending to be totally dead, the fact that they even notice that she's there is interesting. So
Well, there's a big question
obviously,
mark about these zombies because Janae
right,
seems to think that they're always useful, but
right.
why don't they ever attack her or her people?
Right. Well, and then I think we have to talk about that maybe with the next episode, but because there's something that happens that makes
Oh,
it
I
interesting.
haven't seen
But
the next episode,
um
H.J. Conrad. I haven't
yeah,
seen
I
the next
just had to
episode.
jump ahead because I just can't help myself, Stuart.
Okay.
But I have no willpower when it comes to this kind of thing. But in
So
any case,
she lies there, but then two of them do turn and notice
notice her.
her. These are great zombie actors too. I want to just be like, the
Yep.
zombies did such great work in this
Hats
episode
off to these guys. They are
because
amazing.
they're obviously, I don't know where they got these people from. They're not like the usual zombie extras because they have to move in a completely different way.
They
So
have
that's
to move
kind
a
of just,
different way, and
yeah,
they also have to like contort themselves, and it looks honestly pretty painful, some of the
yeah.
things they are
I mean,
doing.
they probably took a page from Train to Busan here, but not without quite as much of the the back bending
Like the
stuff.
body popping kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But so she hops up and is able to run to this buggy and throw a full-grown man out of the driver's seat. Again, Carol is a badass, but she's also like a lady in her 60s. And I don't know, unless she's been doing some Terminator 2 Linda Hamilton's workouts. I just don't know that she's got the chops to be throwing around 200 pounds of dude. But she does. Okay, I can suspend disbelief. Sure, fine. Jumps in the buggy, which Cadron is tied to, and he is apparently the only bait that these zombies care about. Bananas.
right. Um, yeah. And he is, I mean, I will give a slight spoiler because I did watch the after thing, and the actor who plays Kadron was somewhat upset about because part of this, I guess, is not actually him attached to this. It's
Oh
like a
no, I thought he liked his dummy.
no,
He
no,
said it
he
has a
liked
bigger head than he
he
does.
liked it, except
Yeah.
he felt like his head was really big, and he goes, "I really don't have as big of a head as that." I thought it was pretty good, so I maybe he's just sensitive about the size of his noggin, but
Just watching that guy being smiling so widely and being like such a brighter version of the Cadron that we have never seen
yes,
that version of this guy. It was
yeah,
really nice to watch him just be like, I was in Mont Saint Michel. This is the first time
yep,
I've ever been here. I had such a great time.
yeah.
I thought that was, like those after shows are. I love it when they put other characters on there, not just the
Oh
Melissa
yeah.
McBrides and the Norman Reeduses.
Yeah, no, and it was really that was what to me that was like one of the highlights was him talking about that.
Yeah,
And I do love this whole visual and this whole thing where Carol just basically jumps into this little thing and takes off and she's just like there's this whole thing where they're all like chasing him and he's like just go faster. Like it's a pretty good scene. And I
it's
it's not
good. It's good. Right. Sorry. Finish your thought.
it's not meant to be comical, but it has a moment where it feels a little comical where it's just like there is a minute where it's just like, oh my gosh, just keep going. And he's the bait essentially. So
Yeah, he's not loving. Cadron is not happy about the state of affairs, but at least he's like, okay, at least this lady's driving. He is
right.
also seems remarkably recovered from the last time we saw him, which was yesterday
Yeah, he's
in
been
the
in
tunnel.
some bad shape, this gentleman. So
But now he's kind of like much more vivacious, even though he's tied up. We can't really tell, but once he gets untied, he's like, he seems pretty back to old Cadron levels of energy. The
well,
the
he
dumb the
does,
dumbest
but
thing that happens here,
if you
though,
were
AJ.
tied if you were tied like that for so long though, I don't know that you're gonna be in full fighting form,
Yeah,
but
it's
hello,
just been a
Will.
200-mile drive from Paris.
Right.
I'm sure it was fine. But the dumbest thing that happens here is when she pulls up to the gates of Mont Saint-Michel, there's a little gate, there's a little door, and he's like, "Why are you stopping? Let's go." And meanwhile, Genet's army has been pulling out these medieval cannons. Medieval cannons were not rifled. They do not shoot in straight lines. You just kind of throw big balls of metal in a general direction. But the first shot they fire arcs over Carol and Codron's buggy and blows up the door. Again, I know that they want me to suspend disbelief. This is super dumb.
Hmm.
Like this is ridiculous. Even with like a modern piece of artillery, without like ranging it in or doing any work,
Yep.
they're just one shot. That's all we needed. We're fine. But then,
Yep.
so Carol and Kodron can get into. I just wish that the writers had come up with a different way for the doors to be opened.
I agree.
Maybe the Nest people open the door for Carol and Kodron, because the next things that happen is them driving through the streets getting shot at. This thing
Yeah.
is a very open buggy and
Yeah.
nobody gets hit by any of these bullets. I also felt like that
Uh,
was a little bit odd.
we have to suspend our disbelief here, Stuart.
And they're
I
asking that a lot in this episode, I just feel like,
yeah,
or
there's
certainly
a
these
lot
early
of
scenes.
definitely. I do like the idea that they're kind of through this little maze of narrow streets. You've got multiple things happening, like multiple threats, friends and foes, plus the addition and stress of these Uber walkers.
Like what Carol and Kodron zipping through that first foyer or courtyard, and the guys are looking at the buggy and then notice that all the zombies are about to come in and then get completely overwhelmed. I
Right.
loved that. That was great. But um yeah, I do think that Carol probably would have caught a bullet, and so would Kodron during this drive through the streets because they do get shot at like 30 times.
Yeah.
She then she stops driving by hitting a dude. It was almost like a Wilhelm scream sort of moment, where he's just like, "Oh!" He just gets run over by this ATV buggy, and then she very capably like takes his gun, shoots a zombie, shoots another guy, uses the axe very quickly, frees Kodron, and then Kodron does his like Boromir moment. Although I don't know that he does Boromir here because we don't see him die, do we?
Nope.
But he kind of acts like it's his Boromir moment. He's like, I did it for the boy. And then with a length of chain goes to hold off, I don't know, 7 fast zombies. It doesn't seem like the odds are good, but He's also beaten up Daryl a few times.
True. So he's got, you know,
What do you think? Do you think he's still alive?
yes.
Yeah,
I
you think
just
we're
think he's too.
you're like, oh yes, yes I do, Stuart. Not for any reason, not because I've seen
No,
more
no,
episodes
no.
than you.
I have, and that's true. But I also was like, no way is he dead yet.
Okay.
Because he's too interesting, and they've got, this moment where he passes this message on with Carol that's like, I did it for the boy. I felt like they really have to reunite Caudron with Laurent at some point. And
Yeah,
so
and because
you have to make it
we really need more of an explanation of why he suddenly decided that Laurent
right.
was worth his life.
Right. So that's why I was like, no way are they gonna have him totally bite it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, because in season one, remember, he just wanted to basically sell him into slavery or make him become a child soldier in the Poof Wars. That was the extent of Caudron's motives for Laurent back in the day.
And then we've got some sad stuff that happens, but
Yeah.
also turning of a new big bad, which is Losang really just takes a pretty hard turn into villain territory, and we knew he was going here. I think it wasn't totally clear how big the transformation would be, but I think it's pretty clear now. But he, from the last episode, had taken Issa to interrogate her and basically said something to Daryl, like Daryl was irredeemable, but she still had hope or whatever. And of course, she's not going to give up Laurent. She's not going to give him up for this insane plan that Losang has. She watched as Losang tried to like have zombie Sylvie um like bite Laurent. And in addition, he drugged Laurent. Like these are not the actions of a person that anybody should be following. And I think she's fully aware of that. And we all know that her loyalty is to Laurent. As much
So
as she may,
another act of suspension of disbelief that the show is asking us to take is that she is the only reasonable person, along with
right,
Daryl at Mont Saint Michel and
right,
Sylvie and Falou. So like there was just like 1% of people there were like, oh, you know what? This feels like not cool.
right. Because I also think that there would be other people voicing opinions about this because they love Laurent and or at least they have this. I mean, even if they do think that he is some kind of Messiah, it's I don't believe that all of these people would be on board as quickly. I think that I feel like Lusane would be the outlier and these people would be the outliers, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, because the cult behavior that they've been exhibiting has been what's like Unitarian or whatever. Like they're
Yeah,
all religions are cool, everybody's coming in. We've
yeah,
got people wearing yarmulkes, we got people wearing hijabs, we got them all. Like we got Christians. Let's just all togetherness, inclusivity, and then also we murder children. What? That it just feels it's just a
yeah.
weird thing. It's weird. That's all.
It's a weird thing and it's dissonant in terms of the things that they have been presenting.
Yeah.
So I don't think they did a good job of proving that these people would always be on board with this, to me, this very extreme faction that Lassane is now seems to be representing. So in
Yeah,
any
and
case,
his turn here too, where Issa also she says stuff like that kind of suggests she's not even religious at all anymore. Where because he's like, we're gonna show people that Laurent is the Messiah, and we're gonna do this thing to him, and she's like, yeah, and he's a person, and he will bleed and die, just like Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad, or I forget who else she said. There was a few other people, but that I feel like that does kind of end the conversation because Losang's like, "Oh, yeah, you don't get it at all. I can't talk to you about this stuff."
yep.
And she does this tiny little cut on his face. She cuts him in this little teeny tiny cut.
Mm,
He doesn't like that so much that this pacifist, this guy who's described himself as a pacifist, just picks up a knife and
yeah,
buries it in her. I mean, he
yeah.
does look, to his credit, Joel De La Fuente, he looks shell-shocked by doing this.
He does, but then he kind of moves on pretty quickly, and
Well,
he's all right.
actually, like the activities of the outside world are intruding into this quiet moment where who knows how it would have gone. But
But I mean, I don't, to me, there is no question that this is a mortal wound. He got her good, her reaction. And then when she's on the ground, she's like losing a lot of blood.
Yeah, it
Very,
wasn't apparent to me until she starts to walk away just how much she's bleeding.
yeah,
She kind of goes down. You're like, okay, well, it wasn't a great place to get stabbed. It wasn't a small knife, but maybe she'll be fine. And she does wake up shortly thereafter and
yeah,
starts wandering down a hallway. And you can, like, they've put the bloody footprints there, and you're like, oh, okay, that's basically,
yep.
yeah, that's game over.
Yeah, and she happens to run into Carol, and this part also bothered me a bit because it's not like Carol's been helping anybody else in the nest, and I
But
don't
she
know why
did. She
she,
did. She helped that family.
okay, she helped
Because
them, but like,
which was funny too. Like the family's going, Papa, ils arrivent, ils sont arrivés, or whatever. They're coming. And they run into a door. Two pouvoirs or guerriers go past her, and Carol does the excuse. I love her what she does French, Melissa McBride. Excuse, and then she throws a knife, hits like into one of their heads, and then from the hip does a headshot on the other one. So she's definitely, I mean, that to me is badass Carol, believably, more believably. So
yeah.
she has helped this random family because the Puvars were going after them. She did intercede there.
All right, I'll give it to you. But it still felt weird that she somehow is like, okay, I'm gonna help you, Isabel, and not even know. Again, it was great to see them meet. And then obviously, we have the reunion. Um,
God,
you know,
that was such a great scene.
yeah.
And in the after show, they kind of talk about how it came to Norman Reedus in a dream.
Mm,
He's
I
like,
know.
yeah, I just had this idea and I wrote it down and then, they made it better or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
like he gets out of jail because a scared nesty guy runs into his jail cell and then he just kind of holds up his arm and demanding to be released, which apparently happens. We don't see the guy who freed him ever again, which is a little odd.
No, but it
He's
is
not
pretty
behind
funny.
him. Yeah.
It is pretty funny because I will say Norman Reedus did a fantastic job of like basically saying, yeah, you need my help, let me out, kind of a
Hmm.
thing. You have to let me out, and the guy's like, sure, and like lets him out. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, he does this amazing little choreography. I thought that choreography was fun. He's just like taking them all down, and
And
you know,
like Carol's in the background of a lot of those shots as just a very blurry figure in the distance until she's the only other one standing, and then it comes into
that's that was pretty great.
yeah.
That was pretty great. I admit, I had a moment. I had a little moment. I was like, ah,
Oh, I definitely did. Yeah, I
that was
think,
pretty good.
and he kind of breaks down and does his brother Merle just died crying face a little bit.
Yep.
The famous Daryl crying face, which we
And there's this thing that she's like, you knew I was going to come for you. So that was kind of funny. Not funny, but touching and lovely.
yeah, and it's taken
And
her what 3 days to find to
I know,
find
I know
Daryl in
she's
all of France.
in all of France, and she found him. But he made it pretty easy. He leaves
Uh-huh.
path where he goes. But I will say that the thing that really struck me about this, and this is why this works, it's why people love the two of them together. So Daryl, I mean, your point about his Merle face is true because that like he comes from an incredibly like traumatic family situation. He's talked about it all throughout this series at varying points. And Carol also comes from that too. And the fact that they have both survived all of this and they get into this later and have that bond and have each other's backs, even if they don't always agree with each other, they are family and they have like that relationship is why they have this series. So, I thought that the reunion was done very well and this was really just an amazing sequence. So,
Yeah, it was great, and it definitely evoked those feels that I was hoping it would, and so I was happy about it. Then they go out and find Issa, and she's looking very pale, and I was like,
mm.
oh, because also when Carol had found her, she was like, oh, it's clean, it doesn't look too bad, just or that's good, like just keep pressure on. I was like, okay, okay, maybe the bloody footsteps were not the death knell that I
As
thought they
bad
were.
as we thought they were, right?
But but now when you see her, she's like ghostly white. She doesn't look good at all. Daryl has, I don't know, 10 seconds with her before she dies, and she starts talking about seeing fireflies and makes him commit basically to take care of Laurent.
Hmm.
And this is heartbreaking. Like Daryl, what this show needs him to be unhappy and not with anybody again. I keep going back and forth on this. I'm just like, why can't this guy have somebody? And
They can't.
this
They can't.
episode kind of plays with this too, with the stuff with Theo and Dee Dee later. Um, and the when Carol is like playing as Sister Isabel. I thought those were an interesting counterpoint or way to continue that discussion about their love life or his love life with Isabel, which only really they got to kiss one time.
Right.
I know he had sex with Leah, but come on, can this guy please get laid and
I
have a
know.
lover? 'Cause it's been a while, I'm sure, and it probably had been for Sister Isabel too, as a nun. God, those poor people. They just got to smooch one time on a beach full of bugs, and then she dies. They
Yep.
don't show a coup de grace for her, which is fine. I think it's kind of implied most of the time
Yep.
these days.
Yep.
And then like we go into this kind of weird. They have had their happy reunion in the hallway. Then Isabel dies, and Daryl is like distraught, overwhelmed, and they leave Mont Saint Michel. They leave the fighting behind, and they're walking across the beach or the mud flats. And Carol's trying to talk to Daryl, and he's just like, "Hurry up! Let's go. We got to go faster." He's kind of being a jerk. He's not talking to her. She's just saying things like, "Everybody misses you back home."
Yep.
It's
Yep.
kind of like an insane sort of conversation to be having in the scenario that they're in. Yeah, I don't know. It felt right away like, oh, the happy reunion is not so happy.
Well, it is, but I think Carol also gets what's happening. I mean, she's been around him long enough and seen him deal with pain and heartache. So I think she gets it. I mean,
Yeah, but she's still
I
trying to
don't,
get through to him, and
she
it's like
is.
clearly it's not going to work. It doesn't. I think he doesn't really slow down or let her talk to him until they find the Rubik's cube,
Right.
um,
Um,
and then like find some trail, and they start to like just track Baloo and Laurent, who had left the cave, and Daryl's like upset about that too.
Although
Um,
he shouldn't be upset because he was the one who made the plan, and obviously the reason why Laurent's okay is because of that. So that was
yeah,
kind
he
of,
told them to wait one day, right? And it's tomorrow, so yeah, I don't
I
know.
mean, I felt like that was an odd, but I mean, I'm sure playing into this is he knows he has to tell Laurent about Issa, and I know that's probably a hard, horribly hard thing to know that you have to do, and to know that you've been given this you know, you have to carry out this promise you made to Issa. So there's also that probably too. So my guess is that there's some conflicting things going on because Carol's talking about all the people back home and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do here with Laurent. You know, like there's a lot. There's a lot to process.
There is a lot going on for Daryl, and I like that this episode kind of has him go through it all, but mostly internally. Like, he's yeah, it's like there's a lot of him processing what he's just lost, what's just happened, what he's supposed to do next, and the fact that Carol's there, because he doesn't talk about home really a lot until the end of the episode. But as they're walking out through this, like on these French fields and roads, uh, Losang there's also been a scene of Losang having to surrender to Janae, who's very smug. And he's just like, it's over. And she's like, yeah. And God will support me if I find the boy, or something along those lines. And you can
Right.
tell Losang doesn't want to hear that. That's not good for him. Um, Carol is telling Daryl that she flew to France on a feeling. I think that they left in an error in this scene because Daryl or Norman Reedus says to her, "What? You just packed up a plane and flew to Maine?" Like, what?
Yeah.
And she goes, "No, we stopped in Greenland." I'm like, "What? Again? What?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
His reactions are pretty good. Like,
but no, yeah, his reactions are good, but he said that line wrong. He said it should have been from Maine
oh, I guess so. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
flew to France, but I don't know why they just left it in.
Yeah.
No, I noticed it both times I watched the episode, and I was just like, "Come on, guys, just shoot that one line again. It's gonna take you 10 seconds." I don't know. I don't know how to make films, but I'm like, just do it, or just edit in the word from.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe.
how I would have fixed it. Fix it in post. It's tiny. It's stupid for me to point it out. But yeah, like that was crazy. She's like, yeah, I just came here on a gut feeling, which is bananas. And he's like, hey, on the radio in Maine, you said something arrived. I also hated this part, HA. I think I have a few real nits about this episode because she's like, oh, yeah. He's like, you said somebody arrived. Who was it? And she goes, it wasn't a person. It was a feeling.
Huh. Yeah, that I just kind of skipped over because I thought it was dumb.
It's super dumb. Like that was clearly not what they were trying to get at in that scene in season one of this show. So I mean, it's okay to like change your direction and be like, no, this isn't going to work with the Rick and Michonne show because they
Hmm.
haven't arrived by the time that she left. And who else are they gonna is she gonna say? And is it going to be someone that we don't care about? And then what's the point of it? But they should have. I just wish that they'd thought that thing through. To be like a feeling has arrived on the radio, like that's in the first like three words she can say to Daryl on the radio after they haven't spoken in probably a year.
Yeah,
A
that's dumb.
feeling has arrived. A feeling of,
Yeah, I didn't love that, but I liked so many other things about it that I was willing to let it go.
oh, I
Um,
mean, I want to see them talking. I just think that they could have done something differently there.
yeah, agree.
That was annoying. And yeah, I guess I just wish that I'm not sure how they could have fixed it. They clearly shouldn't have put that line in the first season.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and then he's talking about de paysan, the one word of French he learned from Isabel, about how his perspective has changed. And there's another line here that I didn't fully understand, where she's like, "Oh, this is crazy. You here, you and me here. This is wild." And you speaking French, and he goes, "Nah, this is dumb." And she goes, "It's crazy." And he goes, "No, it's dumb." Like he repeats it.
Oh, well, I kind of thought that that was a little bit of a like tip of the hat to the audience, like because it is a ridiculous premise. So I kind of thought that that was a little bit of a tongue in cheek
Oh my God, that would
reference.
be so funny if that was the case. Where
That's
he's
kind
yeah,
of that's how I read it, was like that this was like this is
this is
so
the stupidest
ridiculous.
thing we've ever done in The
Right.
Walking Dead.
That's kind of what I was that's what I thought about it. So maybe we should see if we can find more info on that. But that's how I took it, was like how ridiculous this whole idea was, that they're kind of like laughing about it. So, and letting the audience laugh with it. So anyway, that was my take, but maybe I'm wrong. Um, but yeah, I do like how they do fall into, even though they are a little bit, look, they're falling into sort of their own little pattern that they've always had. It's never easy for either of them to talk about things and to talk about feelings. So we knew that there was going to be some butting of heads, because there always is with them. But I do enjoy watching them as they kind of progress and get down the line, and eventually they get to it. It just takes them a minute to get there. So,
Yeah,
um, and then what did you think about, so they have, I guess we have we have a few scenes with Janae and Losang, but that's kind of like, you know, just the normal like conversations between the two of them, and it is kind of ridiculous because it's like they're both trying to do the same thing, but Losang's trying to make it like God is protecting Laurent from her. And I mean, they're both, to me, very much on equal footing. They're just slightly tweaked in terms of how they get there.
yeah. It doesn't really make sense that she's left him alive, but it is
Right.
nice that he and Jacinta are locked in the shower stalls where Daryl and Isabel were the night
Yeah,
before.
that's
So I did
true.
like
That's
that.
true.
But yeah, they're just posturing. And yeah, it's basically this exchange of, well, God is God is I was worried that God was keeping Laurent from me, but he was keeping him from you, which is an interesting thing. He's just rationalizing everything,
Oh yeah, I mean, he's totally rationalizing his own nonsense.
but
So,
that's where she also comes up with the idea that if she can retrieve Laurent, then God is on her side. And she doesn't really believe any of that. She's like, I've just been using reason and truth
hmm.
because I guess in a way she does represent scientific, because she's been making zombies. She's been making new zombies.
Yeah.
Apparently they've managed to kill off all the new zombies. Nope, not a big deal. We don't get to see any of that, or that doesn't appear to have posed a problem for the pouvoir because they have Mont Saint Michel under their thumb. It's secure. Everything's fine. Daryl and Carol have found this weird lane of old zombies impaled on farming equipment. This was good, I guess, for ambiance. Kind of definitely pulls up some haunted house kind of vibes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess that was maybe what it was for. When you think of it in the terms of this village of only old people,
Right.
it's a little confusing. Not confusing. Like maybe that was the only way they felt like they could keep undesirables away was to scare the crap out of them. But how did they get them up there? I guess 20 years ago they could have done it.
Yeah, there's also a little bit of a like they talk about, as people are dying, they don't have the energy to, I guess, do that anymore. So people are just sort of like in their little yards, wandering around in their walker way. So it's kind of a little village of old walker people.
Yeah. And
Um,
in the after show, they talk about how these guys all died of natural causes. I don't know about the ones impaled on farming equipment.
yeah.
That those might not be, but all the zombies that they see on their little walk down the street are just like they all died of old age.
Yep.
Like France is
Um,
definitely having a different zombie apocalypse than the US did, that's for sure.
True. Um, but this sort of made sense to me though too. It's like, they don't want to risk basically taking them out and then having to and then the energy to bury everybody, and
Sure.
so they just kind of are leaving this as is, which is fine.
I mean, it's smart. Like World Beyond, they had those cages or those reinforced doors. So if people died in their apartments, they would be stuck in there or they couldn't get out and hurt folks. It's the same sort of policy. It's just, I guess I don't know that Dee Dee and Theo have that around their farmhouse, but these other people apparently all had like gates and fences that they couldn't get through if they died, if they happened to die in their front yard, which apparently a lot of them did.
Right.
So it's a smart adaptation for this lifestyle.
Right. And then the way that this couple is living is very cozy, and they have great wine, they have great food, they have great company.
No
Um,
salt, though, which is a shame.
no salt, just truffles, which not my favorite thing, although I can take it in a small amount.
Yeah,
And
I don't know, man. I would rather have salt than truffles for
yeah,
sure. Or
no,
if I can't have one without the other. So, I mean, I no, that's not true. I can have salt without truffles, but I feel like truffles need to have salt anyway.
agree, agree. And life without salt, no flavor, man.
No.
Uh, anyway, but they have this whole thing, and then there's also, you know, there is a lot of discussion about sort of historic things that have come before and their way of looking at things, and so,
Yeah, super suspicious that Theo brings up we used to sell carrots to the
yep,
Nazis.
yep.
Like, that's obviously a red flag
Yep, I was like,
for
oops,
him.
I see where this is going. Though you also have Dee Dee, who is talking about her experience during that time too, and she does bring this up later, and it does. What she says does resonate with some people, and I definitely think there's a deliberateness to drawing parallels here,
Yeah.
and how different people react in those situations. It's a little bit on the nose, but I see it, and so yeah.
I was
Uh,
definitely feeling everything that Dee Dee was saying to Carol. It was usually to Carol, felt
mm,
super coded. Like she was
yeah,
always kind of trying to relay something, but like, the inevitable betrayal when it comes is still kind of a surprise because they're both super nice to Carol and Daryl, and they're like, helping them fix up cars, they're feeding them. And part of the reason why it feels so nice is because Dee Dee's not in on it at all. She's just there talking about love and loss and helping Carol when Carol once again is confronted with a barn and
yep,
can't handle it. I don't know if you noticed the scene right before they go off to the barn. They're both working on fixing a car so
yep.
they can catch up with Laurent and Falou, who have gone ahead to Paris. And Dee Dee brings out some hot tea, and
Mhm.
Daryl just chugs it.
He does. I know. It's like, how do you do that, man? You're burning yourself. Um,
He does it in the way that Daryl does everything, which is like
Coffee,
no
best.
ceremony, just chug that tea and dump that glass or that
Yep,
cup while Carol goes off to confront another barn and also have another
right.
flashback, which is when
Um,
Dee Dee's like, consoling her and that she has a hug, and Carol's like very upset. This is clearly one of the big subplots of this season is Carol. this feeling that came back apparently was when Daryl called her from Maine, is the feeling of I've never dealt with the death of Sophia, and now I have to, and it's been 13 years. It's because she keeps coming up this season. I know that we've probably already even addressed this on this podcast, but every episode, it feels like with Carol, just about there's a Sophia callback and some sort of way that she's having to process.
Well, and I do think that that's valid, and I think it is makes total sense that she did go out to seek Daryl because he is her partner in this kind of trauma. And she also knows that he's experienced similar things. He was definitely part of the Sophia story,
Oh yeah.
and he is the one that understands probably more than anybody all those things that she's been burying. And he kind of raises it as we saw, like in, we saw that he has raised it in the past, but then definitely respects her. Um, the fact that she just can't talk about it. And so I think it absolutely makes sense that she is looking to him or needs to be near him when she's kind of going through all of this. So I guess I'm wondering if they're going to bring up, honestly, we've seen all the stuff that Daryl's burying, so I wonder if that's going to be something that we see a little bit later. He's doing it to some extent, but not, I mean, he is absolutely in denial about Issa's death and what he has to do, and even, says a few things that just absolutely make no sense. But it's it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. And in the meantime, I will say that we've seen them accepting hospitality from Teo and Didi, and like the minute that they offer sort of this last like wonderful meal, I was like, oh, don't do it, man. That's just like you're walking. It's a trap.
Just hit the
Um,
road, man. Yeah, they were ready to go, and then they were like, "Oh, but truffle eggs, that sounds okay."
yeah.
It was
And
actually pretty funny because Teo is like, "Oh, it's like sex for the mouth." Sorry, sister. And then Carol has one bite, and she goes, "Jesus!" And she's
yes,
supposed to
that's
be a
pretty funny.
nun, and they
Yeah,
were like, "What?"
that's pretty
Yeah, that
funny.
was good. That was well done. Um,
Uh,
yeah, and but the pouvoirs have already come by once. Theo kind of talked to them, and then they left. They talked really for a short time, so I'm not sure how he got his message across, which he apparently did during that scene. Because
or
they,
he did it separately off camera, which is what I kind of thought. I
yeah,
think he
it's possible.
really, yeah.
They come back with Janae right after or during breakfast or brunch or whatever meal they're having. Dee Dee tries to send Janae away, saying that they left after breakfast, but like there's a steaming pan of eggs there, so not quite able to sell that one.
Yeah, because there's also four plates. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and Janae is like, don't worry, we don't need to search the farmhouse. We'll have these two do it as zombies again with this idea that if you turn these two people into zombies and three of your people are standing in the room, how, how do you feel like they're gonna bloodhound for you? I don't like they have not shown us this work yet. So maybe they don't react to pouvoirs, but no, that's crazy. That's not how this works.
That's not how it works. Yeah, again, it's one of those like things that I guess we're supposed to just accept or whatever, but we still haven't seen anything that makes us think that this would be a good idea to release these super zombies on anybody. But this is, look, I love the choreography in the scene. I thought it was amazing. It's always great to see Daryl and Carol working as a team and seamlessly working as a team, and they just do the thing, they get it done. And in the end, there that whole thing and the very messy end of Janae is pretty satisfying
Yeah.
and definitely fitting. And so she gets hit with her own zombie dart and has an incredibly like fast decline. And so I guess the one thing I wanted to talk to you about was so she basically dies outright. She doesn't come back because she's alive when it hits her, I guess.
I think that that's the yeah, because they've been killing them and then hitting them with the dose.
So I guess that just kills her. But I was like, as they were watching, I was like, just nail her in the head, folks. I wouldn't even take that risk, right?
It
I don't
apparently
know.
makes things explode inside your head, so I guess it must have damaged the brain enough to stop you from being able to reanimate.
Maybe, but do they really know that? I'm just like,
True.
just take care of it. I did like the fact that the actor who plays Janae was so excited about the dummy that they use for this. They like use a dummy with all sorts of crazy stuff as a practical effect, I guess, the head to
Yeah.
make it like this, and she got to keep it, which she was pretty psyched about, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a really funny part of behind the scenes where she's like, Nicotero told me not to tell you that I have
and
this or something.
and he told everybody that
Yeah.
he gave it to her, which was kind of funny. And I did think that that was really a fitting end for her. And then unfortunately, Dee Dee dies, and because she's like collateral damage in the whole crossfire. And I mean, Teo is very upsetting. It's funny because Carol and Daryl are like, "All right, we'll help bury her," but they're just not even talking to him. They're like, "Okay, we're done with you." I think they understand why he did it because he thought he was protecting them, but it's not like they have to like it. So,
Yeah. I mean, his reasoning was you go with the winning side and the Pouvoirs have more men and I'm not gonna like he clearly wasn't in the French Resistance. None of his family were because he's actually way too young to have been alive and like not a child in World War II.
yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty understandable. Just they bury her, they find a map, and then they get ready to leave. Daryl then finally opens up about like his intentions, kind of, because
Mhm.
all they really know right now is that they're going after Laurent because of Isabel's dying wish. And he's like, "Look, I the longer I stayed, the harder it was to leave. I never. Carol says you loved her. He doesn't respond to that, and he just says, Laurent's coming home with us, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I know."
But this is before when he was denying that that's what was going to happen. So I think that he's
This
accepting.
is at the very end of the episode. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
before he had. Yeah, you're right. He had been saying, I don't know what's going to go on. I don't know what we're doing, but he's finally saying it out loud, which I was happy to see. Like that's what I mean by this episode kind of being his 45 minutes of Daryl processing what's just happened and what's going to happen next. And I'm glad that he came to this conclusion because he also has a line when they're in the village, like she's talking about like, what about the kids back home? And he's like, Laurent's different. I don't want to lose him. Where I'm
Mhm.
like, wait, you were okay? You were okay with RJ or Judith getting killed?
Which is kind of what she says. She's just like, what?
That's a weird thing to say, Daryl. You were kind of their nanny for a couple seasons there. I mean, honestly, he was pretty hands off. The whole
He did
Whisperer
just
War.
keep them. So yeah.
Um, so then back at Mont Saint Michel, Sabine, Janae's right hand lady, comes to Losang is like, Janae is dead. She was killed by the American. And what do we do now? And clearly has been taken in somehow by Losang's battiness and like
Uh,
basically surrenders her forces to him.
yeah,
What a
that was
twist.
weird.
Why wouldn't she have seized power and continued Janae? I mean, I guess she was always that one episode of her at the Louvre. She's not 100% the same mindset as Janae. They've kind of laid that groundwork,
Yeah,
but
but before that, she was definitely an like
yeah,
pre-apocalypse. She was definitely an organizer, and she actually was more gung-ho than Janae.
right.
So I don't. Maybe she just doesn't want that level of responsibility, and she just sees the opportunity, and maybe she doesn't want to be that leader. That's possible too. But I don't know. I couldn't. I don't know that I would see her ceding all that power to Lucerne after they were enemies for this long, and certainly not trusting him.
Yeah, and the idea that the pouvoir, their people, would wholeheartedly be like, yeah, we'll be cultists. We've been training to kill these guys. Literally, like it's all we talk about back at the Maison Mère. But sure, we'll join with them, no problem. Like I just that's a stretch. Because like Remy had been talking to Carol about they're always training for war with the Union. They don't know when it's coming. Like Remy, this guy from just like Paris neighborhood, knows what their main thing is over here with the pouvoir.
Mm,
So that's a little bit suspicious. I wonder if we'll see Remy and Julian again since they're just in Paris and that's where we're going again at the end of this episode.
yeah. So yeah. So we're in a pretty good spot. And obviously I have watched the next episode, but I'm excited to talk about it with you. But if anybody has ideas or thoughts about Le Paradis pour toi, please email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Podbean, which Stuart will give you the deets about.
That's Podbean. Nope, that's reanimated.podbean.com. Also, as of last week, you can now listen to / watch our podcasts on YouTube. By watch, it's just our logo. It's not our beautiful faces. Sorry.
We're never going to put our beautiful faces out there. So, in any case, thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. And until next time, au revoir.
Arrivederci.
Adieu.